Hello, friends. It's Nibby again. Back with another one of these. It's one of the Shadow Deck cards. And this one is Prejudice. What if you were categorized into a group and given attributes that were false without truly knowing who you are? Now, prejudice is more than just about racism. It's more than just about one thing or another. It's anything. Anyone can look at you as a human being and decide who you are based on how you're dressed, how you look, how anything, how they grew up, how their parents decided to teach them. Prejudice is about more than color of the skin, more than about how you decided to walk out the door. It's about a lot of things. But anyway, let's continue reading The Beautiful Land because I'm having fun with it. All right, Chapter 6. Charles Yates stands on the flat white roof of the building he designed and watches the fiery corona of Earth's nearest star begin its ascent over the Australian outback. His right hand holds a yellow pencil worn to a stub, while his left contains a battered black notebook. Inside the notebook is an almost incomprehensible series of sketches, equations, and essays written in a never-ending stream of tiny capital letters. A normal person flipping through the notebook would likely dismiss it as the ramblings of a madman, and one look at the owner with his unkempt gray hair and thick engineer glasses would only help to confirm this suspicion. But if the reader is not a normal person and is instead, say, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, the notebook would be a different thing altogether. Near the front, for example, written in faded blue ink, is a schematic for a device that can focus light into a narrow, powerful beam. The scientist would instantly recognize this as a laser and probably think little more of the subject. If, however, he happened to glance at the date at the top of the page and see that it read 1954, the sketch would become much more interesting, and the scientist might begin to wonder how this odd little man in a dirty lab coat who looked like some kind of homeless grandfather, had sketched a laser some 6 years before it was invented by a man named Theodore Maiman. The scientist would flip through the pages now, eyes growing wide as he read. Here is a device that can capture and store images electronically, put to paper nearly a decade before the first digital camera was constructed. There is a page of notes that seem to prove Fermat's last theorem in a way far more elegant and clever than the solution that would be presented some 20 years later. And look! Scribbled in the margins of a page, a casual afterthought is a way to double the efficiency of semiconductors. But as the pages turn and the years move forward, the millennium, the writings started to become incomprehensible. Phrases like Schwarzschild, wormhole, and cosmic string begin to pepper the pages, along with the cryptic notes such as, must remember to test this later, and find the girl from Shelby. There are designs for batteries and cold fusion reactors and geothermal heat transference systems, equations for faster than light travel and infinite mass reduction, fantastic rants about nanomachines and redshift measurements and the capturing of the Higgs boson particle. And as the two numerals at the front of the year shift from 19 to 20, the pages become compressed with notations and concepts so advanced that the clever scientist would simply lower the book with trembling hands and wonder why his lifetime of achievement suddenly felt so meaningless and empty. But if the scientist ever tried to meet the genius behind these ideas, it would be a most terrible mistake. For when he looked into the eyes of the notebook's author, he would see that the rare and amazing mind which placed these thoughts to paper was, to put it in technical terms, completely batshit insane. And at this point, he would have to smile and nod and back away slowly, fearful to turn around lest the author began to howl crazed laughter before lodging a fire axe between his shoulder blades. But Charles Yates did not worry about such reactions because he never allowed his notebook to be read. The only person who had so much as a glimpse inside it was a brilliant young grad student named Judith Halford, and that single look had convinced her to abandon a promising scientific career and follow him to the end of the earth. And now, nearly 15 years later, their long partnership was about to come to fruition. Yates considers this as he gazes across the desolate brown surface of the outback. Thousands of custom-built solar panels, their design lifted straight from his ancient black notebook, stretched toward the horizon in every direction. Each one is covered with a thin film invented by Yates some 10 years prior, an improvement that allows them to gather more energy than even the most wide-eyed optimist could dream of. All the years of existence compressed to a single point, he thinks, as the panels go about their work. And only I can see it coming. Though he is exhausted and crying for sleep, Yates will not allow himself that luxury. This is a day over 2 decades in the making, and he wants to revel in every last moment. Somewhere beneath his feet, a machine hums quietly as it gathers power, and 15 hours from now he will descend into the earth and flip a switch that will change the world forever. No, he will not sleep now, not when the end is so very close. He reaches into the pocket of a tattered lab coat and produces a cigarette, placing it absent-mindedly in the corner of his mouth. His other hand dives into a different pocket in search of a lighter, but emerges with only a single pistachio shell and the rusted blade of a scalpel. Frowning, he moves to the pocket of his old gray slacks, but these hold only lint. He thinks back as to where he might have left the lighter. On his desk, on his bed, by his bed, perhaps in the cavity of one of the bodies he was working on last night, and is annoyed to discover that he has no idea where it is. Yates is a man used to knowing all things at all times, and he does not handle failure well. His thoughts are interrupted by the sound of a door opening behind him, followed by the soft shuffle of feet as they cross the roof and take up position somewhere behind him. "Good morning, Judith," says Yates without turning around. "Hello, Charles." "Come to watch the sunrise?" "Not so much," replies Judith before reaching into her pocket and producing an old silver lighter. She holds it out to Yates, who studies it for a moment before taking it with the fingers of one wrinkled hand. "Where did you find this?" "Next to the coffee machine." Yes, of course." He sparks a flame and lights a cigarette, enjoying the way the smoke burns, hot against his lungs. Judith glances at the notebook in his hands and coughs softly. Above them, the sun continues its long march across the sky. "Is everything okay?" asks Yates after a minute. "More or less," responds Judith. The hesitancy of this answer causes Yates to glance over. "You sound troubled." "We have a problem. Actually, we have two problems." "Go on." "Takahiro has fled the country." "I expected as much." "He took the briefcase." The cigarette trembles slightly in Yates' hand, knocking a small piece of ash into the desert wind. He feels a brief flash of rage rise up in his system. "When was this discovered?" "Sounds like the board has been onto him for a couple of days. They tried to detain him at LAX, but he got away." "Do they know what he took?" "They know he took something, but I don't think they understand the importance. They want to talk to you about it." "When?" "Now." Yates nods. Outwardly, he is the picture of calm, but inwardly he is raging. He wishes he were a lesser kind of man who might gain comfort from violence. If so, it might be nice to grab Judith by the nape of the neck and put out his cigarette in her eye. "You said there were two problems," says Yates, staring at his smoking cigarette. "What is the second?" "It's Sue. He wants to turn on the machine at 10 o'clock exactly. I think the others agree with him." "Round numbers," murmurs Yates. Asks Judith. "A round number is a way to assign meaning to otherwise random events. I chose to activate the machine at 10:17 because it will increase our battery efficiency by 0.1%. But of course, the time 10:17 holds no meaning. It implies randomness, chaos. The men who control this company are incapable of grappling with such things." As he speaks, another image flashes in his mind. This time of grabbing the long red hair that waterfalls around Judith's back and using it to whip her off the roof. The ground below is hard and flat, but not without small imperfections. She would make a terribly interesting pattern when she landed. Of course, at nearly 80 years old, he no longer has the strength to attempt such a maneuver, even if he chose to. "I will talk to Mr. Sue directly," continues Yates with a blank expression on his face. "Perhaps 10:15 will be enough to satisfy his needs." "And if not?" "If not, then it is no matter. The machine will have more than enough power to do what we require of it." They fall to silence again. Judith takes a ballpoint pen from behind her ear and begins to click it slowly. Yates takes a final drag of his cigarette and tosses it off the edge of the roof, watching it spin and tumble through the air before exploding into sparks on the brown desert floor. When the final bit of red flame coughs and dies, he thumbs open the front page of his notebook and stares at one of his early sketches. The machine has taught us many things," he says suddenly. "But its final lesson is this. Reality is flexible. Ideas that we accept without thinking, ideas that we have always accepted, are just shadows on a wall. We can grant them or take them away as we see fit. What are you talking about, Charles? Asks Judith. Never mind. It doesn't matter now. Do you want me to come with you? To the board? They seem nervous. They should be. They've put far too much power into our hands. Yates smiles at this, a horrible thing that appears on his face like a demon in the night. But there's nothing to be done. I will answer their summons. They will ask ridiculous questions and take up far too much of my time. But at the end of it all, they will go forward with the plan and hope that everything is going to be fine. And is it, Charles? Is it going to be fine? Charles pulls the lighter out of his pocket, watching how the sun glints off its silver surface. Are you a religious person, Judith? Not really, no. I learned long ago that religion is nothing more than an elaborate game of pretend for people who are unable to grasp their own demise. I reject this system. I will not place my future in the hands of chance. This evening is an opportunity for those with cleverness and bravery to find a solution to the puzzle of morality. You and I, Judith, we will seize this chance. And the rest of the world? Yates watches a single brown hawk circle over a spot on the distant horizon and smiles to himself. Life is selfish, he says. The predator eats the prey. The virus destroys the host. The quest for survival is violent and strange, and only the truly heartless can emerge successful. You ask about the rest of the world? The rest of the world, Judith, can go fuck itself. The two of them stand in silence, watching the sun move across a harsh and barren landscape. Finally, Judith turns on one heel and slips away, closing the rooftop door behind her. Charles Yates remains where he is, feeling the wind in his hair and enjoying the last full sunrise of a dying world. Woohoo! That's the end of that chapter. So, that was fun. I'm going to use prejudice for this because I can. Because I don't have something immediately available for me to save that chapter. That is interesting, though. I grew up very religious. A family that's very Christian. And I've turned away from that for a lot of reasons. But it's mainly to help me heal. And I've found that paganism has helped me heal from a lot of... I have religious trauma. A lot of different kinds of trauma, really, that I am healing from. And whether or not I go back to Christianity in any way, shape, or form, I don't know, honestly. My relationship with the Christian God is not too good. But that's just me, I guess. You can believe whatever you want to believe. There are also, I believe part of religion is having an imagination as well as being able to have some form of trust for maybe the people that you interact with as well as the Christian God or whatever God you work with, pray to, whatever you do with your deity. But some people that don't believe in religion as a whole, I mean, there are many reasons not to believe in any religions. There are lots of people that don't believe in things because they're not logical, which is fair. It's not logical. It's pretty magical. And magic and science, they're very similar. But not everyone can feel it or see it or anything. And that's okay. Not everyone has to believe one thing or another because they can't feel it or see it or anything like that. That's definitely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's something that I have had to learn, though, that it's okay that people don't believe what I believe. When I was younger, I constantly, through my own will, not through anyone else, I tried to get people to become Christians. And I told them all of the great things about being a Christian. And of course, I was a kid, so people kind of ignored it. But I still think about that. That I was really trying to get people to be Christians because I believed it and I could feel it. I could see it everywhere. And even though now I'm more into paganism and I'm still learning about it, it's not that I've stopped learning about anything. I feel like it's important to learn about whatever religion. Actually, I think it's important to learn about religion in general and not to just kind of keep yourself stuck in one little room where you're like, this is what I believe, and I have all these other people that believe in it with me. Because even Christians have disputes about what they believe because I don't remember how many different, I guess, sects there are for Christianity. But we had, when I was growing up, there was this poster that my mom bought, and it was all of the different denominations of Christianity. And there are many. And that's not even doing non-denominational, which is, as one of my favorite comedians growing up said, non-denominational is Baptist with a cooler website, which I still think is funny. But even in non-denominational, I feel like there are a lot of different sects. But it's an interesting thing to know about. I feel like also history is a very important thing to know, and religion is actually a big part of history. Isn't that crazy? A lot of people try to take different parts of history out because they think, oh, well, if we learn this part of history, then we're pushing things on to people, whereas learning about history helps us not do the same things again. That's at least part of it. Learning about history, I feel like in the long run, it helps everybody. Not just one person or another. Learning the actual history of something, which it's really hard to find the real history of certain things. Because people, of course, want to hide certain things. Kind of like in the Bible. The Bible, they hide a lot of things. But, I mean, they don't even have to hide things in the Bible. I go on a lot of bunny trails, if you didn't know that by now. But in the Bible, they don't even have to hide things because almost no one reads the Bible. I've read the Bible 1.5 times, and my favorite book is one of the shortest books. It's called Ruth, and a lot of people don't know her story, and I'm not going to go into it right now. And I think I might have already, but I don't remember. But Ruth is still one of the best, and the book before that, they were talking about how the book before, I believe, is Judges, depending on what Bible you're reading, if I remember correctly. But it was all basically about the new laws that God and his people were trying to enforce. But yeah, anyway, I feel like learning about history is very important and a good thing to learn about, no matter how old you are. I don't care how old you are. You will learn a new thing from history if you go back and read, especially since a lot of things are coming out about history. Like, that makes me think of this one guy. I was taking an Uber home because I didn't have a car at the time. And this guy was like, did you know that this land was originally the Native Americans? I don't think he said Native Americans, but I'm going to say Native Americans. And I just looked at him. He was driving, so he didn't see me. I was like, I'm going to play dumb because, like, he's going to talk about it regardless of what I say right now. And I'm not into getting into arguments about things. That's not my strong suit, so I try not to. Discussions and arguments are very different things. And the fact that he didn't know that, it felt like it was going to become more of an argument rather than a discussion. So I said, oh, huh, wow. Those were all of my responses because it was not worth it for me to talk more in depth about it, especially at the time. It was before I knew that I needed medication for my anxiety and depression and all of those things. But anyway, all of that said, please learn history. It is important. And no matter what you believe or don't believe, I feel like it is important to learn about other people's beliefs. It's important to know so you're not prejudiced. And reading about it is perfectly well and good if you don't have a way to get information, get history or anything from any other source. That's well and good. But reading is only maybe half of it. The other half is going into the community that you are learning about. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last few years with sign language, is learning about not only the language, but I'm trying to learn also about the community and like the history there and everything. And that's why I wanted to go to school for it, so that I would be able to find a community for it instead of pretending it doesn't exist, I guess. But thank you for listening to the book, to my explanations, and to my rants. I love you guys, and I'll see you all on the other side.